presentation to all of you. I hope you can see the slides because it's much more interesting if you can look at the slides. And as Ben already pointed out, Family Enterprise USA's sole purpose is to promote family businesses in America and their job growth. And I do spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. Right now it's been virtually, so I've presented this to at least 30 different members of Congress and various trade associations, all via, virtually. And most of them have received this very, very well, and it's really helpful for them to understand family businesses. I also, as Ben mentioned, I am now president of Policy and Taxation Group, which I actually formed in 1996. I just took it back over, and its purpose is really to reform, repeal gift, estate, and generation skipping tax, which is one of the important issues that family businesses face every day. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you today. I already mentioned Family Enterprise USA and what we do. We are a 501c3 organization, so we do accept contributions from family foundations, and all of our members are family businesses or family members individually. As Ben mentioned, the survey was conducted from January 1 to April 24th. If you look at the top bullet point on the right-hand side, you'll see that. We received 179 responses, which doesn't sound like a large group, but you probably all know how difficult it is to get to family businesses in the first place. We typically use family business centers around the country, about 60 of them, to help us get to family businesses. Quite frankly, only a small handful are really that responsive, but we also have our own list and other family business lists that we use. This survey has been going on for over a decade. The results are different because we ask different questions, but some of the questions we ask year after year are similar in terms of their response. And so we know that the universe of 179 family businesses is large enough for us to make conclusions. I'm going to skip the highlights because I want to go right into the data itself. And so if you're following along, I'm on slide 6. This talks about those respondents and who participated in the survey. 14% of them, as you can see, are manufacturing, 13% real estate, 12% construction, 10% food and beverage, 6% agriculture. What I think is interesting and most not known by legislators is they still see our country as a country of family farms. And while certainly we have family farms, as you can see, these other industries are much more prominent in today's economy than family farms. And so they have the same issue that family farms have in terms of the illiquid nature of their assets. So when it comes to things like paying the estate tax, family farms are the ones that people usually think at the top of the list. But think about manufacturing, real estate, construction. They all have the same issues that family farms have. And again, that's that illiquid nature of their assets. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the numbers of employees in these businesses. And you will note that they tend to be on the larger size. So in fact, 74% of them have over 50 employees, and 58% of them have over 100 employees. We think that the reason our family businesses that respond to this survey tend to be on the medium to larger sizes because we use these family business centers, and typically a family is going to join a center if they're more complicated, larger, multi-generational, and a little more complex. Moving on to the next slide, slide 7, you will see that these business owners have been in business for many years, 84% of them greater than 30 years. We wish we asked the question 50 years or longer, because I suspect it would be a high percent as well. As you all know, family businesses plan for the long term. They see their business as a legacy, not only to their family, but to their employees and also to the community. And I'll share some data with you about just that. In terms of the jobs that were added, most of the jobs that were added were 1 to 50. So not a significant amount of jobs added in the last 5 years or in 2019, but significant enough to make an impact on the economy. In terms of the growth, the revenue and growth for 2019, again, you can see these tend to be on the larger size. So 65% of these family businesses have over 20 million in assets, 21 million in assets. And in fact, 74% of them have over 11 million in assets. In terms of did their business grow in 2019, 79% said yes, it grew. And you can see below that, what were those sources of growth? Strategic decisions, economic conditions, capital investment, and such. The next slide is what are their expectations for growth in 2020? And they actually have higher expectations. Now remember, this was being conducted in kind of the beginning of COVID-19. Part of the peak because it ended on April 24th. But still, family businesses tend to be optimistic and resilient. And again, plan for the long term. So most of them are, relatively optimistic. And you can see that on the right-hand side of the screen, where 26% of them are very confident their business is going to increase in revenue, and 46% somewhat confident. So those reasons for which they believe their business is going to grow is not a big surprise. 68% of them believe it's their strategic business choices, then the economic conditions, and then capital investment, industry growth. The bottom of this graph, you can see that 16% of them don't think their business is going to grow. And that's because of COVID-19 or coronavirus. There could be some other reasons in there, but primarily it's due to the coronavirus. And you'll see that in just a couple more of the slides. So I'm now moving on to slide 12. And this talks about who responded to the survey, who the participants were. 51% of them are sole owners and 35% majority owners. We work really hard to try and get the CEOs or the business owners themselves or C-suite managers to actually respond because they have a better sense of the vision for the business and really can answer these questions better than anyone else. The commitment to the family business, as I already mentioned, family businesses see their business as a legacy. They see it an investment in the long-term future of their family as well as their employees. So we asked them, the left-hand side of the screen describes the ownership, who owns the business. And in this case, of these respondents, 41% of them are in generation 2, 45% of them are in generation 3, and 29% in generation 4. The right-hand side of the screen talks about who manages the business. Again, 47% of G2 is managing the business, 49% of G3 is managing the business, and even 27% of G4 is managing the business. So these participants, 1/3 of them have defied the parable of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. And if you look at the bottom left, you will see, as I keep mentioning, family businesses see their business as a legacy. 88% of them see it as a legacy to their children. But what is interesting about that is this next slide, 14, you will see while they see their business as a legacy to their children, 53% of them haven't passed it on to their children. And I see this with families all the time. And you all know this. It's because they think, oh, that next generation isn't ready. The business isn't ready. It's not the right time. Or I'm not ready. And I think that's usually at the top of the list. The matriarch, patriarch, entrepreneur that created the business really is fearful in some cases to pass that business on. Certainly the ownership even more so than the management. And sometimes it's about, I'm not sure what I'm going to do if I'm not running this business. So they need to get past that, and they all struggle with that. For those that actually did pass their business on, 65% of them were partial ownership and 53% non-controlling. That speaks to just what I mentioned. Only 22% of them actually pass on control. Engaging the next generation, for them that actually did pass on that business, 84% did it through gifting and 35% did it through a sale. So do you think that it's important, we asked them, the passing of the business on to your next generation for sustainability? And lo and behold, 89% of them think it's important. But why have only 53% of them actually done it? Well, many of you know this. Succession is always at the top of the list in terms of any family business event or seminar or conference, because that's what families wrestle with more than anything. Well, let's talk about their business concerns. And this is very important to legislators. Their businesses grew in 2019, not as much as they grew in 18, as you can see from the slide. And in terms of how confident they are 1 year over the next, you can see that 33% of them reported they were very confident in 2019, but in 2020, only 26% are very confident. And again, some of this, I'm sure, has to do with the coronavirus. In 2019, for those businesses that did grow more than 10%, 39% of them grew more than 10% in 19, but 47% of them grew more than 10% in 2018. So an actual decline, we can speculate as to why that all happened, but that is 1 year over the next. When we ask them what is the top risk they think to their success, and 58% say a recession or a market downturn, 11% is consumer demand, 11% cost of labor. The coronavirus is really impacted, as you can see at the bottom, in 16. So those other reasons why they think of their top risk to their success really include, the coronavirus, oil and gas prices, and the general economic slowdown, which I suspect the coronavirus is probably reflected somewhat in that 58% market recession as well. The greatest impediment to business growth, again, market conditions. In this question, it was asked differently. It was asked what that impediment is with different selections. And in the other category, you'll see that 15%. That is where the coronavirus, in addition to labor shortages and availability of talent and rising prices, also comes in. So this slide reflects their top tax policy concern, and this is a slide that legislators really want to know about. And it may come as a surprise to you that income tax is at the top of the list. In this question, they were asked to rate 1 through 7. And the reason that this adds up to 200% is these are the top 2 boxes. So they're 2 top concerns. And my speculation, working with family businesses for many years and also DC legislators, is income tax came in at the top of the list because you all know that family businesses pay through pass-through organizations. They pay their taxes through an LLC or an LP or an S Corp. So they're still paying 30 to 35% in taxes, where corporate America is 21%. That hurts them substantially every single day. Estate taxes came in second, capital gains third, payroll taxes, and you can see the rest of the tax concerns they have. This question, we asked them, what's your economic priorities? How would you rate these various policies? And in this question, they could answer all of them high if they wanted to, all of them a number 1. So once again, this is the top 2 boxes. In this sense, in this question, economic policies, reducing or eliminating the estate tax actually came in first, with a very, very close second, income taxes, then reducing regulation. We ask this question every year. And typically reducing regulation or reducing income tax, they're interchangeable. Sometimes reducing regulations at the top of the list. So this is their priorities. But what I point out to legislators is what's most important is what's at the bottom of the list, which is trade policies. Well, of course they care about trade policies. They don't care about them as much as our legislators talk about them. They really care about what impacts their business and their family every day, and that's taxes or simplifying the code and reducing regulation. So it's typically an eye-opener, and I've found with other groups, I've spoken with a lot of the trade associations in Washington, D.C., done various presentations with them, and they tell me that that's consistent with their memberships as well. So because estate tax is important, and corporate America, corporations, as you all know, don't pay estate tax. Individuals and family businesses, they pay the estate tax. We asked them, which would you prefer, reducing the rate of tax from 40% to that of capital gains, or would you want the tax repealed? Would you want the exemption made permanent or increase the exemption? And a little bit of a surprise that reducing the rate from 40% to 20% is at the top of the list. I mean, not by far, because repeal is 64%. I suspect that's because they understand that this is something that's very doable in this political and economic environment that we're in right now. And repealing the tax is something they would like to have done, but not as achievable. And I'm a little surprised that making the exemption permanent isn't a higher percent, but I think a lot of them just assume it's going to become permanent, and that is not the case at all. People need to understand that there is a good possibility that 2025, the exemption will flip back to a $5 million per person. A lot of things could happen before 2025. Everyone knows it all really depends on what parties are in power where. And I can speak to that during the question and answer period if you'd like. I'm going to go through this slide quickly because it's a very small universe of people that actually responded. And the people that did respond are very large business owners. So on average, these businesses didn't hire or paid or didn't hire or lost 288 jobs on an annual basis to pay or plan for the estate tax. They paid $1.1 million in life insurance premiums and another $310,000 on an annual basis for the planning of the tax with accountants and attorneys. And on the right-hand side is the amount of time they spent. This is interesting for legislators. They want to know this information. President Trump has actually used this information in some of his speeches. But I always, again, the caveat is a small, very small sample. It's just very hard information to get. People don't know how to answer the question. They don't want to answer the question. We asked this question the last 3 years, and we've gotten similar answers. I have 2 more slides I'm going to go through, and I think this is really important. This is the first time we asked this question because anecdotally, we know that we believe that family businesses pay better in terms of benefits and salaries to their employees. And so we asked them, how do you pay benefits and salaries compared to your non-family business competition? 56% of them pay above average in wages and benefits and 40% on average. So once again, family businesses see their business as an investment in the future, not only for their family, but for their employees as well. And they know in order to keep their employees, they have to pay them well. And they understand it's a legacy for their employees as well as themselves, as well as their communities, which is the next slide that I'll share with you. This is the second year we've asked this question. Again, anecdotally, we believe that family businesses give locally. And now we know 77% of them give locally, 23% of their giving is nationally. So when that family business has to be sold to pay the estate tax or for whatever reason, that local communities, those communities really do suffer because that giving goes away. So the business can be eliminated or jobs can be cut. The family many times uses their livelihood, and people forget that the local community suffers as well. So I